Welcome, everybody, to the only podcast, your one-stop listen place for everything Michigan State sports related.
That should be the slogan. Can we get that on a T-shirt?
Yeah, let's have Don make that up for someone. I'm Chris Vanini, your host, joined by Austin Smith once again. And big news, or big hot topic, big news to start off the podcast with real quick, Austin. What the heck was the Izzone chanting overrated for when you beat the number 24 team in the country?
Well, was that at the end of the game?
Yeah, they chanted overrated.
I honestly have no idea. I must have missed that when
I've never seen that before.
But, yeah, it's a bit of a stretch. I think 24 was actually a pretty good rating for Minnesota coming into this one. Might have even been low. I might have said underrated.
MSU was probably favored.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty funny. I liked their – we'll dive into the game in a second, obviously, but I liked their Grayson Allen chant a lot more. I thought that was really funny.
But, yeah, I don't think it might be the first ever – all hit. It might be the first ever overrated chant for a team at number 24. I mean, I don't even like the chant when you beat number 1 because it just diminishes your own win.
Right.
Tom Fornelli brought up it's actually a good chant to use if you're ranked higher than the other team. I actually think that would actually make a lot more
sense. I like that too. I think they should just use it randomly. Just bust it out whenever, even if the other team's not. Just like in the second, right.
Just like in early in the second half, MSU trailing by 5 or something like that. Just
down 5 to an unranked team, overrated. Why not spice things up? Just make if nothing else, you could try to confuse John Crispin. And it doesn't seem to me like it would be that hard to do. So, hey, why not? I'm all for it.
Yeah. So, surprising. I guess surprising performance. We're recording this right after the game Wednesday night. We'll talk about both games since the last podcast, but we'll start off with the one that just happened. MSU jumps out to a big lead against Minnesota and never looks back in a 65-47 win. Miles Bridges had 16 points. That might have all come in the first half, I think. And 6 rebounds, 4 blocks. And he was clearly a difference maker compared to the last time these teams played without him. A lot of good, not a lot of bad. I mean, more than anything, this is kind of – I thought it's kind of a battle. It was kind of what you get when you have two teams that are, I guess we've described MSU as high variance, in that they'll have some surprise good performances and some surprise bad ones. And we've had one of each from MSU in the last 2 weeks. This one was on the good side. I mean, I don't think MSU, maybe in the second half they didn't do great, but that first half they couldn't have played any better, led 39-17 and never really looked back. Your initial thoughts on the game?
Yeah, well, I think these last 2 games are a perfect example of that high variance that really kind of describes the team to a T. But, this was the good end of that spectrum. I thought Bridges, coming into this game, as I wrote it in the preview, I thought that the size, even with Bridges back, would end up catching up to State this time, because in the first matchup, Konate, who's like 6'11", and Jordan Lynch didn't do anything. They were got into foul trouble early on. Nick Ward, who is still, as you mentioned a couple weeks ago, is doing an incredible job of getting his opponents into foul trouble.
I thought that was a danger time right there, about halfway through the first half when
so did I.
And it was still a pretty close game. And I thought that was going to be a time. And then MSU went on. I think that was when they went on a 15-0 run or something like that. Yeah,
it was surprising in this game to see Michigan State not get caught off guard or really get exploited down low at all. And not only did those 2 centers from Minnesota not do anything, but Miles Bridges completely negated. What's his name? The kid, where is he? Hold on, I'm looking at the box. Jordan Murphy, who lit Michigan State up in the first game. He had 21 rebounds. Just they couldn't keep him off the glass. They were guarding him with Alvin Ellis what seemed like half the game, and he was just tearing him apart in the glass. In this game, goes 3 of 7 from the field, only has 4 boards, 3 fouls, 6 points. I mean, yeah, he completely neutralized him. And that was where on defense, that's where it showed up. And then offensively, it was really good to see. I was just really happy with Bridges in general, man, because offensively, he just sort of, you saw it against Penn State. He just really looked out of sync. He looked like he was still trying to get back in the flow of things, forced a lot of drives. None of his threes looked solid. And then tonight, I think he did score all his points in the first half, now that you mentioned it. But it just, every one of his looks came naturally. And when he kind of, drove into the paint and the end of the drive wasn't there, he kicked it out. He didn't force it up like he did against Penn State so many times. So you got good Bridges tonight. And he's so explosive. He's such a difference maker, that source of offense. And I think really one of the underrated parts about him is that weak side shot blocking.
Yeah.
He had a volleyball spikes in this one.
Yeah, 4 blocks in the game.
4 blocks. I mean, that's huge for a team that's undersized to have 2 really good shot blockers, even if they only stand 6'6" and 6'8" in Ward and Bridges it's a big deal. So, I mean, I don't know how you can't be mad about this performance. That's about as good as it's going to get right there.
Right. And with Bridges, I don't remember what you picked, but I picked him to beat Penn State and lose to Minnesota. So obviously, my opinion is very good,
Right.
But Bridges was such a difference defensively because they had another big-ish man. They didn't have him last time. It was Nick Ward, and that was it. And so Minnesota dominated MSU inside for the most part. They had on Wednesday, this most recent game, they only had 7 offensive rebounds out of 38 total opportunities. In the previous game, they had 12 offensive rebounds out of 41 opportunities, 29% in the last game. So they rebounded better. They defended better. The help side D with Bridges was really good. And Kenny Goins played really good defense.
Really well.
After doing nothing in the Minnesota game last time because that was a game he fouled out and didn't do anything, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so
I don't know how many points he had in that game. I don't even know if he scored.
Yeah, 7 minutes, 0 points, nothing but
Yep.
5. Yeah, he provided. So, I mean, you're basically adding Goins and Bridges to this game compared to the last one where they won. So, I thought their interior defense was noticeably a lot better. And I think that was a big part of the difference. And it helped them get out onto fast breaks more. And the defense always leads to offense with this team. And so Minnesota finishes 33% for the game, 18% from three-point range. So that's where
there are 2 guys again in the first game. So their 2 go-to offensive players pretty much this season have been Amir Coffey and Nate Mason, more or less. And Mason actually ended up with 14 points tonight, but he has been
15 shots. 15 shots.
Well, exactly. He's been in a terrible shooting slump. He had made 4 of his 20 shots coming into this game, and only went 6 of 15 from the field tonight. And I think he probably made 4 of his last 5 shots, honestly, in that garbage time. But he was inefficient. And then Coffey only put up 5 shots, and 3 of them were threes. And that's the thing that really impressed me as well defensively, is that Amir Coffey he was the Big Ten Freshman of the Week last year, had 2 really nice games against Northwestern, Ohio State, and he's basically a 6'8" point guard. Like, he could easily run the point for them if they needed him to. And in the 2 games that Michigan State played against him, he just didn't get to the rack. And he was being guarded by, wing players. I don't know if that necessarily falls on him or maybe just kind of on Pitino for not finding a way to exploit what should have been a pretty big matchup. But he only took 2 shots inside of the 3-point line, only 5 overall. For a guy who's been on fire of late, to hold him was a nice job by Michigan State yet again. So glad to avoid him.
Yeah, and in the last 15 and a half minutes of the first half, McBrayer was the only Gopher who scored.
Yeah, he had like 11.
Jeremy Warrenamundi, my buddy over at 24/7, he noticed that. So, for me, this game was about MSU's defense, and offensively, they were good, 42% from the field. They didn't play as well in the second half, but 82% from the free throw line. Ward goes 3 for 4. Good. Bridges goes 4 for 4. And Nairn, who's like a 30% free throw shooter goes 3 for 4. Those are, I mean, that's 10 for 12 from guys who typically haven't been either very good or need to be very good at the line. So
amazing what that can do.
Yeah, Goins finished with Kenny Goins finished 8 points, 9 rebounds, and a steal. So
no one really got into foul trouble either. Only that was actually ended up fouling out.
Oh yeah, that's true. But yeah, no one else had more than 2. And Ward only played 13 minutes in this game. And when he wasn't, he still continued to draw a ton of fouls. He still draws about 10 fouls per 40 minutes to lead the nation. So that's obviously, and he had 5 offensive rebounds, a lot of which were put back, some of them on his own misses sometimes, but that was obviously big there.
I think in a strange way, him only playing 13 minutes might not have been the worst thing in the world for him in the long term. Izzo mentioned it earlier this week, maybe after the Penn State game, that he thought the long stretches of playing time and the just the amount of responsibility and the amount of touches were kind of catching up to Ward a little bit and wearing him down. And so to have a game where you can win comfortably and he only plays 13 minutes, like you said, you want him to be in there more. You don't want him to be in foul trouble, ideally, obviously. But to have a pretty light workload for a night, might not be the worst thing in the world. And it showed that they can be carried by other players and do well. And what the other guy who I was really impressed with tonight, and he didn't exactly have a huge, quote unquote breakout, but he just looked so smooth, is Josh Langford.
Yep.
I mean, he looked, I don't know what you thought of his performance, but
13 points.
Off. Yeah.
13 points in 25 minutes, 6 for 9 from the field, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 block. Just kind of a solid guy in there. He actually led MSU in minutes for the game.
He just looks smooth. I mean, he had a couple of just little, would get the ball up on kind of like the elbow at the 3-point line, one dribble to get around the closeout defender and just step up and shoot that beautiful arc. I don't think any of his shots even hit the rim tonight. If you can get him going, just this consistent little 10, 12 points a night, this semi-efficient, pretty efficient guy. Obviously, you're not going to shoot 66% from the field every night, but that's a weapon. He has a game that none of the other guards and wings really have with that mid-range floater type game. And he's also probably the best. I think he's percentage-wise the best 3-point shooter they've got too. He's over 40%. I know that, but it's exciting.
43% to lead the team.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big development. So it seems like I know I was worried coming off of just a terrible performance against Penn State that they were going to get into a funk and that, since they're so young, it would take a while to snap back into things. But, I mean, it shows you what I know. Yeah,
I mean, like I said, I think Minnesota missed some shots inside that maybe they uncharacteristically wouldn't. And then it kind of just snowballed. And two teams that can look really good and not so good at times. I think it's what ended up. Apologies if I sound a little off. I'm a little under the weather. Got a cold after I got back last night from Nashville for the coaches convention.
Jeez.
So if I sound a little nasally, that's the reason on that. So yeah, okay. So let's talk about that Penn State game now, which first half was they were down. First half was real bad. They allowed 44 points in the first half, down 44-32, and had several opportunities in the second half where you thought they were going to make their run and take the lead, and then they never did. And they had 17 turnovers as a team, spread amongst just about everybody, and defensively was not good. Penn State shot 57% on twos. Again, the bad side of what things happened. They looked lost defensively. Bridges didn't look in the game. And so what were your thoughts on the Penn State game?
Yeah, so I mean, for everything like you said that went well tonight, and all of the positives that you take away, efficiency, the reserves giving you good minutes, they just had none of that in Penn State. And honestly, I thought Bridges was really played to the team's detriment in a lot of ways. Not necessarily by any fault of his own. It was his second game back. But he just looked completely out of sorts. Unlike tonight, where everything kind of came naturally within the flow of the offense. He was forcing shots. His threes looked like clunkers. I mean, nothing was especially close. He seemed to be a little gassed at times, which again, he had just been back, for a matter of days. It was only his second game. They had traveled. That was a tough one. I do have to say, to Penn State's credit, though, that, and especially if you listen to Dan Dockich, you'd think they're going to win the tournament this year. But that's a good team, and they were fired up. They came ready to play. I know they have 6 guys.
Dockich was all over them. He kept saying they're going to finish on the top of the Big Ten. He is what he is.
Calm down.
He's probably listening because we said his name. But,
well, Dan, it's time to calm down. I think they're gonna be a borderline tournament team in the next couple of years. They got a lot of good young players, and I think what gave Michigan State trouble more than anything, I thought, was just the team length. They had a lot of guys with long arms out there, especially in the front court. State got torn up on the boards, it felt like, and that was a tough one.
Yeah, I guess in terms of their future, I kind of depends if they keep Pat Chambers around, because he's kind of had some not so great results. But I think their future can be bright. It was a performance where kind of everything that could have gone wrong that did. Although they did go 10 for 14 at the free throw line, so they are kind of in
progress. I will say, I think that game, it to me, I'm not going to put it on Izzo, but it seemed to me like the team just they didn't value that game and go into it with the same amount of mental preparation and excitement that Penn State did. I mean, Penn State, and I know they pointed out during the broadcast, but they've got 6 guys, all of whom I'm pretty sure played significant minutes for them. They're all from that Philly area. And a lot of them played in that gym before, I guess. And that's a really, the Palestra's got a ton of history in it. And I think a lot of that might have been lost on State, and they just didn't come as ready to go. And it's an interesting, Izzo's never shy about making weird scheduling decisions. But, I think Graham Couch tweeted out that in the last 16 years or so, since 2000, MSU is 13-3 at Bryce Jordan or whatever it's called.
Bryce Jordan.
Yeah. 13-3, and they gave up that game to go play basically on an even more of a home court for most of Penn State's most important players. So I think that was a combination of factors, but that was too bad. That was a clunker, and I just hope that, that just makes tonight's win even more impressive, if you ask me.
Yeah, it was a good bounce back because, big picture here, we said when Big Ten play started that they had to start off at least 3. Anything worse than 3-2, and they'd be in big trouble. Then after they win the first 3, all of a sudden they're in a real good spot. You're thinking they could start 5-0 and really be in a good spot, and then they lose to Penn State, and you're thinking, well, now Minnesota's hot again, and maybe they fall to 3-2, and then you're in a bad spot. But they end up coming out for the performance. Now they sit at first place in the Big Ten at 4-1 overall. And man, the Big Ten is weird this year.
I was going to ask you, what do you think that's
Indiana?
What do you say about it?
I don't know. It's Michigan State at 4-1, and then Maryland, Purdue, Nebraska are at 3-1. Minnesota was 3-1. Indiana's 1-3, so
1-3.
It's really weird. But like I said, but like I've said before, with this team, I still think you're in the stage of just make the tournament. I don't think you're thinking Big Ten championship just yet, because there's still a lot of season to go. And this was their easy stretch of games, because it gets harder. They go to Ohio State, to Indiana, and then home against Purdue. and they're not favored to win any of those games. They're not favored in any of those. No, then Michigan then Michigan at home, and then at Nebraska, which I guess Nebraska all of a sudden is a tough game, and then at Michigan. So you're looking at four road games out of 6, and one of the home games is against Purdue, who's might be one of the best teams in the country. So you needed to get those wins while you could there. And so I don't think MSU's thinking Big Ten yet. I think they're just thinking make the tournament yet. And they're projected right now, KenPom 18-13 overall, 10-8. I mean, that's probably enough, but so that's going to be a big stretch here. And so, we think MSU's getting better. We talked last week, everybody says, oh, Izzo had the tough schedule. Now his team's turning the corner. And that I felt we had kind of hit that point, but yeah, it was going to change. And then it's going to go down again. Then it's going to go up again. So I think these next 6 are obviously very huge. They're at Ohio State Sunday, but then they don't play against Indiana until Saturday. So I guess if we podcast next week, we won't have a ton to talk about unless if they lose or something. But
let's hope that's not the case.
So
I'd rather a short pod than a loss.
Yeah. So I mean, four road games out. You've had 3 out of the first 5 at home. One of them on a kind of neutral court. Now you've got 4 or 6 on the road, followed by 4 or 5 at home. So the schedule is kind of wonky that way. So where do you think this team kind of stands in the big picture?
Yeah, I think more or less you pretty much got it. I don't think they're in a position to be thinking anything more than let's get in the dance. They're not in dire straits by any stretch, and they're clearly improving. I think now that you've got Bridges back, and he seems to have shaken off the cobwebs for the most part. The trajectory is up, but again, this 5-game stretch was against the teams you should be beating in the Big Ten, and now you're going up against, like you said, the Ohio States, the Purdues, the Michigans of the world, and these games get tougher. There's no doubt. I don't think Michigan State's the favorite by any stretch. I still think Purdue's pretty well. I think Wisconsin's the best team in the conference. I think Purdue is close, makes it an argument. I still believe in Indiana for whatever reason. I don't know why. But I think after that, though, when you talk 4, 5, 6 in the Big Ten, I don't know why Michigan State can't be in that conversation.
The Big Ten is just, I don't think is not that good. I mean,
there's no
Purdue maybe could end up being a great team, but I don't really see anybody running away with this league. I think the teams from like 3 to 10 are all kind of mixed together.
Yeah, I don't see no one's complete is really the moral of the story. I mean, Purdue's got the bigs to go up with anybody in the country, but the guard play is just not that good and not that deep. And defensively on the perimeter, they're always pretty solid, but from what I've seen so far, they're not amazing. Indiana just has complete total breakdowns. They have lapses. You've seen it with Minnesota. They're streaky. Michigan State's got an obvious Achilles heel with the size that I think Purdue is going to definitely exploit. I think Wisconsin's probably the closest thing to a complete team, which is why I think they're going to end up winning the conference. But I think if you put this Wisconsin team in the Big Ten any of the last, 3 to 5 years, I don't know that they're better than. They're probably finishing 3rd or 4th in the conference. Or I don't know if they're the runaway favorite, kind of like I think they are this year. But what you've seen all year is that Michigan State and anybody else in the Big Ten, for that matter, could be anybody or lose to anybody on any given night. You've seen Purdue lost at home to Minnesota just last week. Indiana, like you said, is 1-3. Nebraska's beaten a bunch of people. Maryland's lost a bad game. It's a wide open race. So, I wish Deontay Davis were around, because then I'd feel a lot more confident about Michigan State's chances to win it. But as of now, these next couple games will be really telling. They could end up in the top. I still expect them to end up in the top 4 or 5 teams in the conference, though. I would hope.
I mean, if they play like this, they absolutely will. If they play like they did
Right,
against Penn
right.
State, they won't. So
They will definitely not.
So
But yeah, it's exciting.
So what are your thoughts on the MAC, Michigan Agricultural College jerseys?
Loved them. Did you not like them?
I thought they were pretty good. I
thought they were good.
Yeah, I mean they work. I just think that the cursive script state as you could get, and I'm guessing, and I don't think they worn it this year, so I'm guessing this MAC jersey may be their new throwback they wear.
Oh, I hope not
frequently. Or do you want it to just be kind of a one-time thing?
I don't want it to be a one-time thing, but I've been on the make the script the every game uniform bandwagon for years.
Yeah, I don't think they've worn it at all this year, so I'm guessing they're not. And they never.
That'd be a shame.
I think something that boggled my mind is that they never sold those script.
I know
jerseys.
Trust me, I know.
Like those things would have sold out like crazy. Like I don't understand why you never did that.
I know. I could not agree with you more. I would have. Trust me, I'd have a couple. I think at this point, if they had sold them, green and white. But no, I mean, if you're asking me where in the spectrum of jerseys it falls of the ones they've worn the last couple of years, I kind of like their everyday ones this year. I don't love the cut of them, but I like them.
Right, that's the Nike thing. I thought what they've had the previous 3 or 4 years was really good. Where you had the green trim right around there. I think.
Yeah, I like the look this year.
I think it's fine. I'm a big fan of the cursive script state.
That's far and away number one.
It appears that that's no longer going to be in the mix. That was those were so good that they wore them in the NCAA tournament.
Right. Well, maybe that's why they're not wearing them this year.
Yeah, maybe they made a Final Four year 1 year. I think they only used one.
It's true. It's true. I think they wore them the Trice year. I'm all for it, man.
Yeah, although they were the road team for every one of those games.
Do them all the time. I'm fully on board. But I like the MAC. I don't mind them busting them out randomly every once in a while. What I would like to see is go back to the Mateen jerseys. I want like a redesigned with the border and everything.
That's what a lot of people thought was going to come. I don't know. My question with that is that design and logo and everything property of Reebok? Is that design because Reebok is now owned by Adidas, and the MAC logo? I'm assuming MSU has long had the trademark on that. I don't know what the situation is with that previous looking jersey.
Oh, good point.
Because a lot of people thought when you saw the number font they had on these jerseys tonight, they did have that same number font. Right.
Yeah, they did.
Possible.
The best part of those uniforms, though, was the trim around the outside. The old, I don't know, like that pattern that went around the arms and the neck. That was always my favorite part because it's because they won in them that they looked good because they were actually like pretty ugly. Like that logo across the front, that big block was just like not a good look.
No, it is. Yeah,
won a national championship in it, so it's like winning makes bad jerseys good, and that definitely worked with that. I'd love. Oh man, would I love them to wear those again? That'd be amazing.
Was there anything else you wanted to hit on? Pretty short podcast because there wasn't a ton to talk about.
I saw. Well, 2 quick recruiting notes we can just quickly touch on. I saw Jaren Jackson, Michigan State's top-ranked recruit in next year's class, the 6'11", kind of stretch four-ish guy. He jumped in the Rivals ratings from somewhere in the mid-teens all the way up to number 10. Now, say what you want about recruiting rankings and all that stuff. You put take it all with a grain of salt.
They mean a lot more in basketball.
I mean, there's a lot more exposure in basketball. A lot of these kids play against each other, and he's playing for La Lumiere, which has, Tuggs Bowen, Tiger Campbell's on that team, and they play against some good competition down in Indiana. So to see him jump up and kind of synopsis I read was that he's really improved his post game because he's more of a face up 4 type who could be a really fun compliment to Nick Ward. But he's improved his back to the basket game. So that was one thing. And then I mentioned Tuggs Bowen. He's coming up on a visit, I want to say towards the end of the month. And that's a big one because he's like a slashing 3. Again, like I said, another Lalumiere kid, top 15, 20 recruit in the country, would really fill a role that Michigan State doesn't have right now and would help really continue to blow out that class for next year. So those are 2 exciting updates. Hopefully Tuggs is becoming a Spartan. He's Jason Richardson's cousin. That's going to be one of those facts if he comes to Michigan State, by the way. That's like, Nick Ward, he's lost 30 pounds since he's come on campus. Oh, well, I hadn't heard that for every single game. And it'll be the exact same thing with them. They'll be like, oh, it's Jason Richardson's cousin. It'll happen every game. So include that in your future Michigan State basketball drinking game rules and regulations for next year, hopefully.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, appreciate everybody listening. Well, actually, real quick, what'd you think of the national championship game, football game?
Oh, okay. I have a bit of a contrarian take. The last 6 minutes were incredibly captivating. Those last 3 drives, Clemson got the ball back, scored the first touchdown to cut it to what it was. They tied it, I think it was. And then whatever, I don't remember exactly how it went, but the last 3 drives of the game were incredibly captivating. But before that, I saw some people trotting it out there as one of the best national championship games ever. And until the last 6 minutes, it was okay. It wasn't great.
Yeah, a lot of
What
people
did you think?
No, it's not the greatest championship game ever. It was a slog for a while. I mean, Alabama had like 7 straight drives of less than like 2 minutes. It was a great finish. I happy for Clemson and everything, but I watched that game, or I watched part of that game at a restaurant with an SEC offensive line coach, and like the adjectives he had to describe what it's looking at Alabama and playing Alabama was just like incredible.
I mean, I can only imagine what his thoughts are. Probably a lot of cuss words and a lot of talking about road graders and hog mollies.
I mean, and Washington kind of lost in a not very close fashion that was similar to MSU, and Ohio State losing in shutout fashion. Does that make MSU's loss to Alabama any less worse? Clemson's the only team that's played with them, with Alabama, really.
Yeah, I think the Ohio State one in particular helps. I mean, it doesn't make it any better. I mean, it still happened. We all lived through it and probably remember at least the first half before you dove too deep into the bottle. But, it was in a weird way, as much as I hate to see the Big Ten get just trounced on the biggest stage. It was nice to, seeing a team like Ohio State, a team that is just super talented, that kills it in recruiting every year, that just is a really good team. To see them get kind of smacked around was good. I hate what it did for, the Penn State and those, somebody else should have gotten in, told you so. I hate that it brought that argument back to the
No, and it was the same argument that's when MSU got blown up by Alabama. It's like, no,
right.
You can't base it off that. I think Penn State had a fair argument to be in, but you can't use the results of anything to say that. So.
No, it's just not. It's not
right.
Apples to apples.
No, yeah. So, all right, everybody. Thanks for listening. We will probably be back next week with not a lot to talk about because there's only one game.
So get excited.
I guess we'll see. But thanks, guys, for listening, subscribing, and everything like that. Looks like we get about 300 or so people listening a week, which is, heck, I just do this for fun, so I appreciate if anybody listens and
thanks, guys.
likes it. Make sure you're always checking out theonlycolors.com. A lot of good stuff there. Austin's got good previews and everything. I guess we didn't preview Ohio State much, but whatever.
It'll be a close one. I don't know. They have a bunch
Yeah,
of
it's Michigan State, Ohio State. It'll be a close game. That's
Yeah.
just what they
You're
are.
going to want to watch it.
Ohio State's had some bad losses, but they're talented, young. So that's the
Yes. And a bunch of 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" guys. There's no real positions.
Yes. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. See you.
See ya.